Michelle. That works perfectly into the segue into my best client. About a year after I started managing the first house that I ever managed for somebody else, this woman happened to be dating her next door neighbor. They broke up, but they were no longer together. He had a client, he was a banker, and he had a client who was an 80-year-old widow that had a bunch of properties. And he called me and said, she has no cash, but she has a ton of property, she has a ton of equity, she's got money tied up in the banks, but she's struggling right now in 2009-10 time frame. There's no dividends, nothing's paying out to her, so she needs to find something to do with all this property that she's got. So he sets me up with her, and I go talk to her. Like I said, she's an 80-year-old widow. Her husband had just passed away within the last 18 months. Her father had passed away 3 years earlier, and she had received a bunch of properties from both of them. All of them in a state of flux. A couple of them had tenants in it, a couple of them didn't. Well, the first meeting I had with her, she told me about 2 properties. Went out to the first one, it was currently listed by another agent. Said, okay, let's go look at the other one. So we go look at the other one. It's a duplex out in the Mapleton area, and very quickly was able to get this property rented. She said, okay, well, let's talk about the other one. I said, well, you're still under contract. You figure that out, let me know. She canceled that contract, and within a month we had that property leased. So we had 2 properties leased, and these are the only 2 she had told me about. I knew she had other properties from him, but didn't know what they were, and she hadn't brought them up, so I wasn't going to bring them up. Sat down with her after that second one, she mentioned another one. So we said, okay, what are we going to do with this one? So went through that one. That one didn't, she had a tenant in it, but the tenant wasn't paying. So I said, okay, well, she wanted to work on some stuff and figure it out. She said, well, I have another property. I said, okay. I said, what's this one? She goes, well, it's a little lot up in Woodstock. We need to just get rid of it. I'm paying taxes on it. These things are killing me. I said, okay. So 3 months later, we ended up selling that lot to the owner of that owned the property next door, and indirectly to a church. Well, I own 2 more properties. I own 10 acres up in North Georgia, and I own 2 lots up on Lake Lanier. Okay. So unfortunately, that is not my area of expertise. So both of those two projects were referred out, and those were sold by another agent up in the North Georgia area. She said, well, now I own another house over in Mapleton that we need to do something with. Okay, Laura. At this point now, I've known her for 2.5 years, and I've sat down with her a dozen times. You can't go to her house without coffee and grits or something that she's cooking that morning, and it's wonderful. I mean, my grandmother happened to pass away about a year ago, and she's been a really good person to get to know, and has really reminded me of my grandmother. And so I've really enjoyed getting to know her, and she's kind of become family to my wife and I as well. And I tell you about her because she is the ideal client for me. She is a perfect person that has a problem. She has a number of properties. She still amazes me. I got a call about 2 weeks ago from her, and she had another property that she basically had owner finance, and the owner financing fell apart, and now she's got to do a foreclosure and do something with the property. So, I mean, this is the kind of person that was out there. She had her fingers into a ton of different things. Did not have her pulse on her real estate, but she's now getting more focused. The woman has taken about 10 cruises since I got involved with her. And that's what she wants to do. She wants to be able to travel. She wants to go see her family. And she doesn't want to have that stress and that pressure of having to manage her rental properties. So she has then in turn referred me to her CPA, who I've picked up multiple properties from out of the Marietta Square area. And he was a very similar story. He went in, and people are very hesitant to turn over their property to somebody they don't know. There's a lot of love and passion, and when they've lived in a house or have lived in a house and have worked on a house, people want to be comfortable with the person that they're turning that property over to. So we went and looked at his first property. It was about $1,000 rental off of Southtown Drive. And while we're sitting there, he says, I've got a house up by Kennesaw State that's been vacant for 5 years. He said, we maintain it, power, heat's on, everything is good. We've been sitting there, and it was he and his wife's house. His kids grew up in this house. They loved this house, and they just refused to go stick a tenant into the property. I said, listen, man, I mean, you're still paying a mortgage on it. You know what you're paying. And I said, let's go take a look at it and see what we can do. So we go up there. Turns out a month later, we got it rented to a very nice family for $1,600 a month. And he was in decent shape, but his financial outlook on his rentals changed overnight from a huge burden to him for 5 years. And the house off of South Cobb, between the two of them, he started bringing in about $2,800 a month in rental income. That was zero before that. So, Sean Tennell, Cardinal Property Management, thank you, Michelle, for the timeline. I think is important because of how I evolved and that I've gotten to today. So I do appreciate you using that as the introduction. So thank you very much.